Hey everybody, this is Joshua checking in with Communitas Christi. I'm going to attempt to make a video real quick. Probably it'll be part one of multiple. What exactly is Communitas Christi and what is my vision? But first off, I'm going to start with how or where I believe my vision comes from. So, and this is mainly just for full disclosure, is that this is from on high for me. I actually get this vision is one that comes to me when I release my ego and I let go of myself the best that I know how, and I try to use my probably highly functioning autistic version of perspective to put all the pieces together and see what would be an optimal vision of life for everybody, including myself. And so, anyways, when I kind of let go of things, this really clear image comes to me. This really clear vision of how we could be living as humans on this earth. Together as brothers and sisters before the utmost divine, in honor and homage to the source of where everything comes from. But now that I've said that, and again, that's for full disclosure because I want anybody to know what this vision is that I'm sharing, that it's coming from a source outside of myself, I guess is what I'm trying to indicate. But your personal beliefs don't have any, there's no bearing on whether this vision makes sense for you or for humanity in general, regardless of your personal beliefs, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So, when I have to explain it to people, first off, let me get to the name itself, is Communitas Christi. And what we're looking at is a community or a communal version of living, if not something that would be necessarily compulsive for everybody, although in the expanded version, pretty much everybody could be happy no matter how you want to live. But just on the community side, it would at least be the option for everybody to live in a community if they chose to. So why Christi? And okay, I don't speak Latin. I was when I went to my God, my source, and I asked for a name, I was told Community of Christ, and then I Googled that, and there's already a Community of Christ, so I just turned around and used technology. I always think Latin is an eloquent and kind of sexy language. So Communitas Christi is the Latin equivalent of Community of Christ, and it allows for my vision to have its own name apart from the present Community of Christ. So anyways, what is it in general? All right, Communitas Christi is basically a spiritual, philosophical, sociological, and ecological model for humanity to engage with each other and the rest of the planet. So on like a spiritual philosophy or on a spiritual level, and spiritual and philosophical are kind of tied into each other, and without any structured version of either or compulsory version of either, even inside of the highest levels, on all levels of the community, there's no compulsory vision of spirituality or philosophical vision, as long as you pay everybody, and this would hopefully one day include every man, woman, and child, not so much the children. The children would probably fall in line just because everybody else is doing it and it's working good for everybody, hopefully. But everybody, no matter what your spiritual background, religious background, no matter what, you would agree there's four principles. And again, this is again inspired for me, but there's four principles that when I go in prayer and meditation to my God and say, how do we fix this situation that we're living in? I'm given that, well, if all humankind were to apply these 4 principles to everybody else on the earth, then we can all live in harmony. So I'm just going to jump over there into those because it's hard to get past them, especially we'll start with the top one, is going to be the right to believe. Okay, and that's why all people of all religious belief systems, and including atheists, as long as they can agree with the other 3 principles, everybody has the right to believe. I think strongly, obviously, I'm talking about communing with God. So obviously, I believe there is a God. I'm wary to use that word, and I'm also wary to use source. I'm wary to use other people's words because other people's words equal other people's connotation. And I really have this, if you extrapolated the higher forms of consciousness that make themselves known through the Bible, i.e. in like Psalms and Proverbs, a lot of parts in the Old Testament, and then a lot of what Jesus is speaking on, there's almost seems to be an incongruency between the divinities. There seems to be a more physical and violent God, and then there seems to be this higher level philosophical, spiritual God. And I don't mean to offend anybody's beliefs by that. But again, this is probably better for full disclosure. None of this has to do with traditional Christianity. And I do have some complaints about traditional Christianity that I will make in other videos, but my intentions are not to harm or divide. My intentions are to awaken and unify and call people to, even within their spirituality, to be the best version or the highest principled version of what they can be within that, for themselves and for the rest of the world. So let's start. I think belief is probably the strongest or the most important of the 4 principles, but there's the other 3 are going to be to know, and this is based on the divinity of us individually and our right to free will. And then we can make our decisions. There's no information. If I'm on Earth right now and there's information that directly affects me, then I have a divine right to know. I see the structures that exist want me not to, but that's about control. That's making me subhuman. I mean, the maximum form of humanity I can be is to know what's going on to the best of our knowledge as humans. I was just thinking about it before I started this video, was we've kind of passed from the age of information to the age of disinformation, where I think there's now more focus on culling, omitting, censoring, and then there seems to be a mass production of disinformation. So it's sad. We kind of, as humans, this doesn't serve us. This serves a very small percentage, which I would argue they obviously probably don't have yours and my best intention in mind, because they're not on the table. They're not being outright on the table. Matter of fact, they're doing anything to hide and to throw a smoke screen over what they're really doing. So not only should we be alarmed and aware of what's going on, we have to be able to take an oath personally, and if not before God, or any, whatever divine structure we have, if we're atheistic, just before humanity, for the sake of the freaking kids, we have to be able to have this as one of our oaths, that everybody has the right to know. And obviously, this necessarily doesn't apply to little kids knowing the most grotesque, scary things in life. I think that's actually a perversion against human development, and there's plenty of studies to back that up. And I think that watching the movies, video games, the way that we quote entertainment is an atrocity. It is probably one of the most heinous things of modern time that we would look back at in the future with disdain. But anyways, so we have to agree that everybody has the right to believe, and everybody has the right to know. And then some would argue this should be the first one. I'm actually just going around this little visual I have where I have these on the 4 points of the cross. This one I have at the bottom because it's foundational, and it's how we stand with the earth and where the cross connected to the earth. And this is the right to be. And when I mean the right to be as you and I would consider it, you and I most likely take it for granted. Most of us take it for granted that we have freedom, we have the right to be, and part of the right to be is the right to choose to like just do whatever. And whether it's past slavery or modern slavery, and whether it's industrial slavery or, field slavery or whatever kind of slavery it is, sex slavery, any kind of slavery, this is being violated. And then when we're allowing for millions of children to starve to death as a people on this earth, this is being violated. There's 30 million slaves out there today. I think there's more slaves today than there ever were before the Civil War. So the right to be. And then I don't even think we're counting, I don't know why or how, I don't think we're counting the factory worker slaves, the ones that are locked down and have suicide nets. I don't think we're counting them. They're definitely slaves. I think they're counted as employees. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if they know better. But anyways, we all have to swear that every man, woman, and child on this planet has the right to be, and like decently be. Decent food, shelter, and safety, security. Not too much safety though. We need to live, otherwise we get robbed that direction as well. And then this is kind of like the feminine. The two of these are very kind of binary, but more on an esoteric level. And to know is basically gnosis, and to know is the strength of the mind, which is considered to be traditionally masculine. And on my visual of the cross, I have it on the left side because that's also considered to be the masculine side. And then the fourth principle is more a strength of the heart. And as the heart is more feminine, and feminine is the right side, so I have it on the right side. And that's the right to be loved. And that one's really complicated in a modern day and era, but simply put, if I had to simplify it down to a single statement, I would have to put it as, and this was kind of inspired, I had to kind of pray on this one, but it's the right for everybody that wants to be hugged, it's the right for them to be hugged. So however that manifests in your mind, that's what that principle is. So the four principles that we are denying our fellow man, woman, and child is the right to believe, the right to know, the right to be, and the right to be loved. And if we could hold up these four principles universally, and if we could get everybody just to agree to these four basic principles, and we would find immediately that one of the best ways to get there is going to be, throw off the shackles of our laziness, because we don't have any more time. We thought, they convinced us that we were gaining time as we went down the system, but as we go down the system, they're really just burying us under technology and complexity and vulnerability when you really look at the way everything's being set up these days. And we're not going to our highest level. We're not living in a spiritual or philosophical focused society first. And so anyways, going back to that, on the spiritual philosophical side, we're here for a lot more than right now. We're just being shown sex and violence and food. That's the base level stuff. Alcohol, addictions, all these things. These are all, I would say, monkey mind, focused things. They're things that, in a spiritual principled way, these are issues of the flesh, and these are issues of sin. But sin, regardless of what sin does to you in the long run, and I'm going to make a clarification on what I'm saying. I'm just going to use the generic version of sin right now. Regardless of what sin does to you in the long run, like spiritually after you die, we can argue that sin in the short term has obvious negative effects. So that's been covered and recovered and looked at, 20 ways from Sunday, even down to a scientifical, statistically backed, I said scientific, statistically backed version, like through psychology and studies and whatnot, is, so that's backed up. We're here for more. We have greater capacity, so we have to kind of expand upon that. And we're not going to do that the way we're going. We're not going to do that by focusing on our lower vibrational selves. We have to aspire higher, and we have to see what our upper limitations are, so that, maybe our kids can live in a world we can't even imagine right now because it's so much better. We're doing the opposite, and we're being led there. And part of it's by being apathetic, lazy, and everybody's being covetous and locking their doors and hiding from their own neighbors. And meanwhile, I'm not going to get off track. This is about what Communitas Christi is, which is a light-filled, logical, spiritually principled alternative to where we are and where we're headed. And based on what I know, we start with these 4 principles, and when we start getting people to all agree to these 4 principles, and then I'm going to keep making more and more videos to get more in depth about, what exactly the details are of the community, because that's going to be the highlight. Living in a community is going to be optimal. It's optimal living for like everybody, from young kids in the developmental age to young couples to elderly people that can't work anymore. Everybody along the scale of the human life experience is benefiting from living within a community. And it's really a harken back to all societies used to live in villages at some point. So it's really a harken back to that, but with like a high tech, and a specifically spiritually centric overtone. So, and then sociological, obviously, this is all about, what's best for the people, like I just said. And then ecologically, we're using technology, but we're trying to do everything in a more sustainable fashion, starting with getting rid of planned and perceived obsolescence. We're trying to build everything, trying to strip down what we need down to the essentials, and then we need to make all of those essentials the best we can. And then before we worry about having all this extracurricular crap, we need to make sure our brothers and sisters around the world are going to sleep without crying themselves to sleep because they're starving, or they're living in such misery, or they're in such pain from such basic things that we could be fixing for the cost of one, resource wise and energy wise, for the cost of one stupid thing that you guys are getting from Amazon that you throw in a week because it's crap and it's disappointing, but it's not expensive enough or worth whatever, it's not worth the return. Probably 10 people could go to sleep tonight without crying. And so, we need to swear. We need as many people as possible to swear to these 4 principles. I believe when we swear to these 4 principles and we don't leave anybody out in our heart and our mind, then we're really moving this thing. I don't know what it is. It's probably not something I could succinctly put into words, but we're moving the marker forward, each person. And so spiritual, philosophical, sociological, ecological, and basically a version of for how humanity live on Earth optimally. So the reason why Jesus is kind of the person that I would hold in front of the community, even though the first principle, the highest principle, probably is to believe, the right to believe, or and including not believing something. It's still, we need something, and it's easy as an American. I grew up, and so, there's always a background of Jesus, Judeo-Christian energy in my lifetime. But, furthermore is, even as like a mental figure, Jesus is like an active unifying principle. And when I succinctly look at what Jesus is, it's like, this is what we need to do as a community and as humans. And Jesus went to others and was of service first. So Jesus would like come up and feed people and heal people. And then he ministered second. So he taught, he spoke from his heart and spirit about what he believed, and, shared that openly to people. And then that was it, as far as it talks about. And, he never demanded anything, and he never accepted anything. He didn't say, you have to do this and that, or you're in trouble, because that's judging right there. I'm not going to get into things that can be perceived as taken personal against people's spiritual principles. But again, I don't care what you do in your own house, in your own church, in your own synagogue, in your own mosque. I don't care, as long as you can be part of a movement to get these 4 principles secured for everybody. Then welcome on board. Let's change the world. I was, in my other videos, I was doing a piece which is universal, I thought, for love and all that good stuff, or I guess a V. And of course, I see a video about how there's some occult meaning, symbology behind those V's, and so for that reason, I'm not gonna use that anymore. And I'm gonna also share the symbol that I do use is gonna be this guy right here. And this is basically my version of this. Oh, and this is, speaking on this, this is the cross, the upper left, which again, left is more knowledge, gnosis. The upper left is the light of God. It's just pure. That's the light itself. And then this round represents the earth, and then the cross obviously is kind of coming out of the earth, and that's the energy of Communitas Christi. That is it's not meant to be an exclusionary, it's meant to be inclusionary cross, because one of our principles is no soul left behind. And I think a lot of people out there are like me, and they would rather live with real purpose. And we're sick and tired of seeing our resources go to blowing up innocent people, and we're sick and tired of seeing our resources go to disposable items that ultimately don't make anybody happy and simultaneously destroy the planet that we claim that we're going to save. I just think there's a lot of people, and if you're one of them, welcome on board. If you're not there yet, then check out my other videos. And again, I'm going to be using this. This is a physical representation of that. Hopefully you can see this is the single arm of the cross, and this is kind of the round part. And personally, when I put this up, I'm envisioning this society, I'm envisioning community spreading across the world, and just people very, very happy. So, like and subscribe. If you're moved by any of this, or you feel controversial about any of this, go ahead and leave a comment below. Until next time, this is Joshua, Communitas Christi, signing off. One love.